on your screen a live look from southern Israel looking into Gaza. And goodness, you can see at this hour those missile strikes continuing amid the Israel-Hamas war. We know over here in the United States, the UN Security Council adopting a watered-down resolution Friday calling for immediately speeding aid deliveries to hungry and desperate civilians in Gaza, but without the original plea for, quote, urgent suspension of hostilities between Israel and Hamas. The long-delayed vote in the 15-member council was 13-0, with the United States and Russia abstaining. Joining us now to discuss this further is Ken Gray. He's the senior lecturer in criminal justice and homeland security at the University of New Haven. Good morning to you, Mr. Ken. Always a pleasure speaking with you here on Live Now from Fox.
Good morning, Gina. Glad to be with you again.
Yes, sir. So let's get to it. This was a day-long event, several days if we're being honest, and then we get this watered-down resolution. For the people that are just now learning of this, can you catch us up? What brings us to this point?
Sure. So this has been an ongoing attempt to try to find an answer to the problem there with the conflict between Israel and Hamas. There had been hope for a cause for a ceasefire and the start of finding some peaceful resolution to this. But instead, the UN Security Council, when they finally came to the time to vote, they had to vote for something far less than that. They called for an immediate, urgent and extended humanitarian pause in the fighting to allow for the flow of humanitarian aid to Gaza. Gaza is undergoing a disaster. Lack of food, lack of water, lack of fuel, lack of medicine. All these things have conspired to hurt the civilian population of the Gaza Strip. They are at a stage right now where starvation for the population there is a reality. Normally, 500 trucks of aid comes across the border on a daily basis. They are now down less than 100 trucks crossing that border on Friday. And so this is really a humanitarian disaster. And this is what the UN ended up calling for, is just a pause to allow for humanitarian aid to get into the area.
I was going to ask you, what does that urgent and immediate humanitarian pause mean? Because you see on the left side of those boxes I created, it doesn't mean the fighting is ending, obviously, with all of those plumes of smoke in the sky in the Gaza Strip area.
Yeah, well, the details haven't really been released exactly what that will mean. I mean, after all, the fighting in the northern part of Gaza Strip has been some of the most intense fighting going since the beginning of this conflict. Despite the fact that the civilian population was told to go south, now they're being told to get away from Khan Yunis, which is in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. And so there's not a lot of places that are safe havens to go to, and those that are supposedly safe are filled to capacity. And so what exactly this means is not exactly clear, except for the fact that they desire to get a few more trucks of aids across the border from Rafah into the Gaza Strip.
A light on the innocent civilians in that area that might not have anything to do with this, and they don't even have clean drinking water.
That's exactly right. So Israel is really at a point where they are trying to get as much done as they can before they are forced to stop. And so that's why you see the intense fighting going on in the northern part of the Gaza Strip around Gaza City and now down around Khan Yunis. They are attempting to root out Hamas and do as much against them as they can, because at some point the world is going to, the international call will be for Israel to cease. And so they've got to try to make it take as much advantage as they can to wipe out Hamas before they are forced to stop in this conflict.
You mentioned that the war in that 75 plus killed in that latest Israeli airstrike, and also putting into perspective, these airstrikes don't have an address, Mr. Ken. They will land where they land. Just shows how brutal this fighting has gotten.
Yeah, when you have a civilian population still in an area where fighting is going on, people are going to die. And this is something that the Israelis were attempting to stop by dropping leaflets telling people to go south, move across the river there from Gaza City to get out of the area. During the hostage negotiation, a lot of the civilians went back north, went back to where their homes were. And so the civilian population is there where the fighting is going on once again. And so the death toll continues to increase. If you can believe it, and I don't know how much faith you put in the numbers, the Gaza Ministry of Health had placed the death toll at over 20,000.
أكثر وأن يورط نفسه أكثر أو أن يرتكب حماقة بالاستهداف لبلدنا أو بالحرب على بلدنا فلن نقف مكتوف الأيدي. سنستهدفه هو، سنجعل البارجات الأمريكية والمصالح الأمريكية وكذلك الحركة الملاحية الأمريكية هدفا لصواريخنا وطائراتنا المسيرة وعملياتنا العسكرية. تتصدى عدة قوى في المنطقة لضرباتنا الصاروخية التي تستهدف العدو الإسرائيلي. 4 دول من بينها دول عربية وقوى عسكرية في المنطقة إضافة إلى العدو الإسرائيلي، كلها تحاول أن تتلقى الطائرات المسيرة لمحاولة منعها من الوصول إلى أهدافها. تحاول أن تتلقى وتتصدى للصواريخ اليمنية. بعض الدول العربية وللأسف تقدم هذه الخدمة للعدو الصهيوني. إذا أراد أن يرسل جنوده إلى اليمن فإنما سيواجهه في اليمن ليعرف وليفهم وليتيقن، وبإذن الله تعالى سيكون أقسى بكثير مما واجهه في أفغانستان ومما عانى منه في فيتنام. ما يفعله في البحر فهو يخسر حاليا. هو يطلق صاروخ بقيمة مليونات.
Looks like the Houthis are doing a better job than the UN, right? That's what it looks like. Which is weird. It's a weird, situation where the UN are trying to they voted, but this exposes people. Like, you know what I mean? They say let people tell you who they are. This exposes like Americans and Israelis for what type of people they are. You know what I mean? Like, what type of people would they say, okay, we won't stop the bombings. We're gonna give these people bunker buster bombs to drop on children and unarmed women and children and hospitals and churches, right? And while we doing it, we gonna give you a cheese sandwich, a bottle of water, and a Band-Aid while we drop bunker buster bombs on you. This is their idea of being humanitarians, right? This is the American Israeli, Nazi idea of humanitarianism, right? This is their idea of what is good, right? A very, very perverted, a very perverted example of good in the world. I was watching a podcast with Saint and Sinner, the dude, the Saint and Sinner, and where he was going back and forth with the guy Adam 22, a degenerate who uh, is basically profiting from having his wife have sex with, have trains run on her by black men on the internet. Mind you that he's rich. And then he called it a monogamous relationship because she only does that for entertainment. And then all the people on the panel that he was there with agreed with Adam 22. They was like, yeah, that's not cheating because she only does that. She only gets gangbanged when the camera's on. And I thought to myself, that's a very American take on things. And he immediately rebuked them for that and said that, you people are out of your fucking minds, right? If you think that, somebody letting their wife get gangbanged by a bunch of some white man selling his wife, content of her getting gangbanged by, you know, a bunch of black dudes. Well, that's a monogamous relationship because they're only doing it. That she only does that when she's on camera, when the cameras are on. And I thought to myself, that's a very American response, right? Because this place is twisted. You see, it's the same. You know, this place is twisted. So of course, and then you had 3 or 4 women sitting around saying, "Yeah, we agree. That's not cheating on your husband. That's a monogamous relationship." And my head spun around. I was like, these bitches are crazy. And then I thought to myself, well, you know, that's a very American take on things. This is the, you know, you live in a place where it's like very satanic. Up is down and down is up. Right is wrong and wrong is right. So of course, you know, pimping your wife out on the internet and letting her get gangbang would be, you know, would be seen as monogamous to most people in America, right? They would come up somehow. They would make that jump, right, into you know, across reality and say, well, yeah, that's a monogamous relationship. She only does that when the camera's on. So as long as she doesn't, as long as the camera's on, then it's a monogamous relationship. And I said, okay, that makes sense. We're in America. You're in Israel. You're in the world. You're in Europe. You're in the world. You're in the, you know, in the Western dominated, satanic, anti-Christ dominated culture and society where they bomb, they bomb unarmed women and children with bunker buster bombs, get them cheese sandwiches, water band-aids while the bombs are falling, and call that humanitarian aid and goodness. And they call that, I don't know what, Christian? This is what they call Christianity. Or, and, you know, and all that kind of shit, right? And I was like, wow. You know, there's a saying by, I think it was the philosopher. He said, there is no, he said, there's no sense of, how did it go? He said, there's no sense of sanity to be well adjusted to a sick society or something like that, right? No, there's no sense of health, right? There's no sign of health to be well adjusted to a sick society. I think it was Thoreau, right? That's so true, right? There's no sign of health to be well adjusted to a sick society. And this place is sick. You say, which part? All of it. All of it is it's a very sick society, right? That's why you have people who say, you know, your wife getting gangbanged on camera is a monogamous relationship. And then you get like 6 women would agree with that, right? That's why you get people, the UN, right? Where they say, well, this is humanitarian aid. We're gonna drop bunker buster bombs on people, get them cheese sandwiches and band-aids while we do it. And we're gonna call this righteousness. We're gonna call this goodness, right? This is the world you live in, right? Whether you like it or not, you see, you have to face reality, right? Like I know people say, oh, yeah, you're so dark, whatever. Well, motherfucker, listen, this is what you voted for. This is the word. This is what you put up with every day. This is what you signed up for. This is what you don't speak against. This is what you know, whatever, right? So don't knock me for just pointing out the obvious, right? You want to be oblivious and be apathetic. No, motherfucker, I'm not going to let you be oblivious and apathetic. If this is what y'all want, fine, but let's just call a spade, right? It's a sick society, man. You know, it's extremely sick. I look at my children, I say they are sick, right? My children, they infected with the devil, right? I say, God, may the Most High help them, right? Because there's nothing I can say or do to help them. They've been made sick, you know, by their mothers and their friends and society, and they can't shake it off, right? I look at my family members and I say they sick. They say I don't like you. I say that's okay. I know that you're sick. You see, and I was just like you, so I have some compassion for you. I was made sick by society. You see, but what I learned was that when you start to become enlightened, you wake up to the sickness, it's funny that the people, they like you. It seems like they like you when you're more acclimated to it, right? They find you more palatable. You know what I mean? Like when I was getting in trouble, I was running around, smacking the shit out of dudes. You know what I'm saying? Maybe, hanging out. You know what I mean? Pushing packs, doing wild shit, right? Getting locked up, all kinds of shit. It seems like you more palatable to the people in your family. Like that's something they identify with. But then when you become more enlightened and you get away from, you change your life, then you say, when people say, well, I don't like you. You say, funny, you used to like me. What's the problem now? You used to like me. Why is it that you don't like me now, motherfucker? And then you realize it, see, because people become acclimated to the wickedness. You see, they that's something they can identify with, and they only want to be associated to that which they can identify with at a certain level, and they'll tell you, but we're good people around here. But are you really? Like Christ said, there's no one good but the Most High that is in heaven. I digress. But it's funny that the Houthis are better than the UN, right? They say the Houthis are terrorists. The Houthis are more effective than the United Nations, right? You see where the Houthis said, "Fuck that, right? We not just gonna ride with this." Right? I don't even think that Yemen is at the UN. I don't think they even allow them in the UN, right? They talking about United Nations. I didn't see the representative from Yemen. Nobody talked to them. They talking about they get ready to go bomb Yemen. Where's their representative at the UN? The United Nations is a piece of hot flaming shit. Let's just call a spade a spade. A bunch of worthless, fake, phony cucks. It's a colonial enterprise, colonial Nazi enterprise put there to try to keep people from revolting, right? To give us some, like I said, it's a sick society. So the United Nations is there to make people think that somebody cares, right? When nobody cares. I think they found like coke at they found like 10 bricks in the United Nations mailroom. They be pushing packs through the United Nations, right? Them motherfuckers done got caught. You know what I'm saying? Child trafficking at the United Nations, trafficking in young children, pushing bricks through the United Nations, right? The United Nations is a hot flaming piece of shit. Let's just call a spade a spade. For the uninitiated that don't understand these things, don't know these things, right? For the foolish, really, at this point, you're just a fool. You say, I didn't know that. Well, you're just a fool. Sorry. The time and the age of being kind is over with, right? And so, you watch them collectively punish the Gazans and the Palestinians, right? You watch them give these people collective punishment. And the only people in the world, I was thinking like the only people that can help them is the Yemenis, one of the poorest countries in the world, figured out a way to apply pressure and say, oh, well, we don't got much, but y'all do ship a lot of shit past our, coastline. So we ain't got no spot at the UN, but we do got a coastline on the Suez Canal. And if you Israelis and Americans bring your boats through here, we'll sink that shit to the bottom of the Red Sea unless you listen to us, right? You gotta fight us, and we'll sink your shit to the bottom of the Red Sea in the process. And we won't let nobody come through here except the Russians, maybe the Chinese and Arabs that work with us. They more effective than the United Nations. And you know what happened? You know what's happening? They backing off. They starting to back off, right? They're scared of these people. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. This is what it looked like to me. They scared of people that can fight and will fight them, and they have a strategic position like the Yemenis, even though they poor. They might be poor, but they some badasses. All they do is drink beer, pop AKs, and shoot missiles all day. And they good at it. You see, they good at it, and they like to get down for the crown. You see, so you got the right one. Just turns out they happen to be in a strategic position, parked the Suez Canal. So they figured out a way how to apply pressure, right? And now Yemen has become more effective than the whole goddamn world, right? How is it that the poorest nation, one of the poorest countries in the world, is more effective than collectively the whole fucking planet? Russia, China, America, Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the whole of Africa. Where are these Africans at? We're a bunch of losers, right? Where are the Africans at? The Africans got countries on the coast across from Yemen. How come they didn't do it? How come, where's Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia? All of them are right along the Red Sea across from Yemen. How come they didn't say anything? Cowards, right? It took Yemen to stand up, right? Egypt is along the Suez Canal. Egypt could say, listen, we're going to shut down this. It took the poorest country in the world to stand up to the whole fucking planet and say, listen, stop bombing these fucking people, or we'll shut down 12% of the traffic, the maritime traffic on the planet, because it comes past our coastline. And we willing to get down for the crown, right? And now the whole world is taking notice. Nobody cared about Yemen, right? When they were fighting a 7-year war against the Saudis, backed by the US and NATO, right? Where they were bombing Yemen into the dust. And you know what happened? They fought back and they won. And you know what they said? Don't send the Saudis this time. Come and fight us yourself, if you dare. Don't give weapons to the Saudis to shoot across our border and then send Saudi mercenaries and Al-Qaeda mercenaries into our country. Come fight us yourself. Pull up with your warships to our coast so that we can sink them to the bottom of the Red Sea, right? Bring your soldiers here so we can kill them. That's what they told them. I mean, well, I just played it for you. You can listen, you already can rewind and listen to it, right? It took the poorest country in the world. How can the poorest country in the world threaten the whole planet, right? Had more, all of a sudden, they got more juice than anybody on the planet. They got more juice than Tupac, right? These motherfuckers pull a Tupac out this motherfucker, right? And go in on everybody. And now they scared. These motherfuckers are scared to fuck with them, right? Because they're about that life, as they say, right? See, it ain't like they posers. They not posers like Americans or whatever. They not posers. They will get down, you see, and can get down and beat the shit out of the Saudis, right? And so, but what's going to happen is the Yemenis are going to be able to apply enough pressure. I don't think they're going to fight the Yemenis. They say, well, we got a coalition. We're going to go over here. We're going to put them down. We're going to put these Arabs down, these sand Negroes over in Yemen. We're going to shut them down. I don't think so. My prediction is, right, the way this is looking, could be wrong, but my prediction is they're gonna pose like they're gonna fight Yemen, and right before the fight start, they're gonna force the Israelis to stop bombing Gaza and force a ceasefire, rather than to fight the Yemenis, who is the poorest country in the world, one of the poorest countries in the world that's willing to fight them, and have a lot of good fighters, you see, and can run a guerrilla war along the Red Sea for years and sink ships. You know what I mean? Like every week, guaranteed they can run. Trust and believe they can bomb these people. They don't have a base. They'll run a guerrilla war up and down that coast of the Red Sea, and they'll sink ships. You know what I mean? Like, once a week, once every few days. And they can do that, they pop beer and sink ships, from here till kingdom come. And there's not shit they could do about it. So they don't want to really fight the Yemenis. And so what they're gonna do is, and they're scared. These people are scared, man. These cowards, man. I mean, anybody that bombed children, anybody that dropped bunker buster bombs on children is a coward. You see, anybody that keep using overwhelming force against people, right? When it's not necessary to terrorize populations, genocide them, ethnic cleanse them. You know what I mean? They're cowards. They're not gonna go in there and fight those people, right? So just like now, Israel is losing to Hamas. The only thing they can do is kill the civilian population, right? To try to get them to turn on Hamas. They can't actually beat them. You see? I mean, this is just the type of, demons that you're dealing with. I'm just calling a spade. And, so they go in there and they collectively punish the population. But the thing about that is, God believes in collective punishment. So it's a good thing, I'm going to end this on this, right? It's a good thing they like collective punishment. It's a good thing they like the doctrine of collective punishment. The Israelis, you see. Collective punishment is coming for the whole planet soon at the hands of the Lord of hosts. Stand by. So it's good, right? It's the Lord believes in collective punishment. You see, so they say, well, they think it's okay for the Israelis to collectively punish the Palestinian Arab and kill them by the tens of thousands, and they find collective punishment acceptable, right? That's funny. So does the Lord. They found it collective punishment acceptable for the Iraqis when they killed 1 million Iraqis, right? We went to Libya and killed tens of thousands of people, right? Syria, 250,000 dead, right? So these people believe in, they say collective punishment is a breach of international humanitarian law, but they constantly do it, right? So I was just thinking, like, where is collective punishment in the Bible? And then I was like, why is it happening? The reason why the collective punishment of the prophecy will take place is because, like the Bible says, what a man reap, so he shall reap, right? Galatians 6 and 7. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man sow, that he shall reap. That he shall reap. Sorry. You see? So if you sow collective punishment on the people, then you're going to receive collective punishment. And they have sown collective punishment, right, onto the world's populations for hundreds of years. Most recently in Gaza and, Africa and, South America, they've sown collective punishment on people. So the Bible says, whatever you sow, you shall reap. You see, the Bible also believes in collective punishment. It believes that if you do collective punishment, you shall get. And you say, well, where is that? Well, in Joel 3 and 2, it says, I will gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. Where is Jehoshaphat? Jehoshaphat is where they are bombing right now, you fools. Jehoshaphat is a small town right outside, I believe, of the West Bank. Jehoshaphat is where they're laying siege to the churches right now, the wicked synagogue of Satan. You see, and its agents are laying waste to the churches and the mosques and the schools, right? That's where Jehoshaphat is, right? It says Joel 3 and 2, I will gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will plead with them for my people, for my heritage, Israel. Right? Now, is he talking about the people that are bombing? When in reference to Israel, is he talking about the synagogue of Satan? Of course not. The reason you know that is because you know Revelations 3 and 9 and 2 and 9, then you know he's not talking about the people that are bombing the indigenous people, right? The real Semites. He's talking about the bloodline, those real Semites. You see, the Bible is an occult book. You have to have discernment and intuition and enlightenment to understand the true messages in the Bible and the prophecy. This is a prophecy, and you have to be able to connect the dots. You see, so you have to understand where Jehoshaphat is. Most of you don't know. You say, "I will gather them and bring them down to Jehoshaphat." You're like, "Where is that? Brooklyn? Where is that? California?" You have no idea what's going on. Jehoshaphat is where they're bombing right now. He said, "I will gather all nations and bring them down into Jehoshaphat." Right? You're gonna be brought back to Gaza. See, all the Americans are gonna be drugging to Gaza. You're gonna be all of the Israelis are gonna be drugging to Gaza, right? You're gonna be drugging into this place, but not to drop bunker buster bombs. You're gonna be drugged there in chains. How do we know? Well, Joel 3 and 2. You're gonna be drugging to Jehoshaphat and back into Gaza soon, because of the collective punishment that you did to them. You're about to be collectively punished. So all the Americans will be drugging to Jehoshaphat. All the Gazans, all the Europeans from Germany, the British, you see, all the people, he says all nations, right, will be drugged down into Jehoshaphat, right, back into a place where you did collective punishment. You see, you're going to be drugged into that place, right? And he said, I'm going to plead with them there for my people, my heritage, Israel. Is that the people in Israel going to be chained up? They're going to be captured for their crimes, you see. He's talking about the bloodline of Israel, not the country Israel. The bloodline of Israel is the Gazans, stupid. When he says what you did to my heritage, Israel, it's a reference to the Semitic people from the bloodline of Christ in Gaza right now that you are bombing, you fools. This is how far you people are detached from reality and understanding that you can't even grasp what you're doing, right? You can't even come to grips with what you're doing. You see, that's why the book and the words on the page confuses you, even though it's plainly clear. And even though it's right in front of your face what's going on right now, right? With the bunker buster bombs dropping and exploding on churches, you still can't figure it out. You're confused. You don't care, right? But you will. Why? Because you will be gathered up. You see, that's when you'll care, right? When you get gathered up. You see, and it says you'll be brought into Jehoshaphat, and he will plead for my heritage, Israel. The heritage is the 12 bloodlines. The Gaza, the people in the 12 bloodlines of Gaza, right, and of the West Bank, not the people in Israel, not the white people that came from Uzbekistan and Russia. They're not that's not his heritage, Israel. Not the people from England, right? Not the people from New York City, right? Not the Russians that came from there. Not the Zionists. They're not his heritage, Israel. Stupid, right? The people you have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Well, that would be the people in America. 50 states, that would be Brazil. That would be the islands. They're scattered. You see, that would be Africa, places in Africa. You scatter the heritage is scattered. It's not brought together in 1948 into the state of Israel. The heritage that he's looking for is scattered somewhere else. And he said, so I have to gather them up in the places where you scattered them and you parted the land. See, the whole earth belongs to the Lord of hosts. He's the king of the planet. He's the king. You see, there is no United Nations. He's going to destroy the United Nations for the farce that it is, right? The United Nations is a piece of flaming bullshit, right? Better to live under the king and the laws that he don't break than to live under the United Nations where nobody can be brought to justice. They drop bunker buster bombs on babies and get you cheese sandwiches at the same time and tell you that that's justice. You know what I mean? So you have to be brought to justice. They have to be brought to justice, right? Luke, what does it say in Luke? He says, but those my enemies which would not, what is Luke? Luke is quotations from Jesus Christ, for those that don't know, right? So what does he say in Luke? He says, but those my enemies which would not that I should reign over them, bring them hither and slay them before me. You see, this is the real Christ. The real Christ is a Yemeni. You see, he's like the Yemeni warriors, right? You see, he said, bring my enemies to me, right? So that I can fight them and kill them. You see, that's the real Jesus Christ. You see, and he believes in collective punishment. Just like, not because he asked for the sake of collective punishment, but for the sake of he has to adhere to you reap what you sow. You have to, as you sow it, as you sow, you shall reap. As the people stood by and you watched, and the Americans and Israelis all stood by, and the French and the Germans and the African, the Hamite and the Canaanite, right? You all stood by and you watched the collective punishment, or you dished it out. Well, you sowed it. Now you're gonna reap it. You see, you have to be brought to justice. You see, and he says, so he shall bring you hither, right? So that he can mete out justice to you, as they say, right? And if you resist, so that he can slay you, right? He goes on to say, and I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there I will plead with you face to face. You see? The Lord of hosts is going to plead with you face to face. He's not going to send the Saudis, right? And get them, he's not going to give the Israelis bunker buster bombs to drop on you. He's going to come personally and step to you see? And bring you into Jehoshaphat for judgment, chained up, by the hundreds of thousands and millions, one by one, group by group, you see? And he says what? In Isaiah 66 and 16, for by fire and by a sword will the Lord of hosts plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord of hosts shall be many. Why? Because he believes he's going to, the collective punishment that they gave out all over the world, he's going to give it back to them for what you have to sow, have to reap what you have sown. You see, you have to reap that back. So the Lord of hosts believes in collective punishment. This is the Bible. This is the real Bible. This is the real prophecy. This is the real truth of what's going to happen soon, right? You collectively punish the Gazans and the Negro in America, right? And the Negro in Africa or wherever, right? You collectively punish people. So now the Lord of hosts has to collectively punish you. You see? And the Negro can't get that done. The Yemenis can't get that done. There's only one person who can get that done in his army, right? They the only ones can get that done. You see? That's written in the book of Joel. That's written in Isaiah, right? He says, by fire and his sword shall he plead with your flesh, and the slain shall be many. There's another verse where he says, the bodies shall be strewn along the coast. It'll be so many of them. It's going to be millions of dead people. He's going to kill millions, right? It's collective punishment. You reap what you sow, right? So when I see the collective punishment of the Gazans, and the Palestinian Arab and the Indian in America and the 100 million dead Africans that built the slave colonies in America. Well, when I read the prophecy of Isaiah, I totally understand. You reap what you sow. You see, you have to be brought to justice. This has to be paid for. You reap this now. You sown this, so now you're gonna reap it. You know. When I look at the 10,000 dead babies in Gaza, right? I understand where justice gonna come from, and I know it ain't gonna come from the United Nations or even the Yemenis, no matter how brave they are, right? I know that the Lord of hosts is gonna plead with y'all flesh, you see, and that's the only hope for justice. Because if you look at this world, you know that there is no hope for justice. There's no hope for justice in the United Nations or the International Criminal Court or the Arab League or the African League, right? There's no hope for justice in any of these places. This is just a dog and pony show, right? I'm gonna move on. Let me try to get through this. Acts 7:7. And the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, said God. And after that shall they come forth and serve me in this place, right? The Israelis aren't in bondage anywhere. They're over there dropping bunker buster bombs on babies by the tens of thousands, right? For the nations whom they shall be in bondage to will I judge. You see, that means that the Israelis gonna be judged. The Americans gonna be judged. You see, the people that had the people in bondage, right? That put the people in bondage, they're gonna be judged as a nation. He said the whole nation. He didn't say I'm gonna judge Joe Biden. He said I'm gonna judge all of America. I'm gonna judge all of the United Kingdom. I'm gonna judge the whole state of Israel. You see, collective punishment. I'm gonna judge Germany. I'm gonna judge Russia. I'm gonna judge China. I'm gonna judge Eritrea. I'm gonna judge Ethiopia. I'm gonna judge. I'm gonna judge South Africa, right? And I'm gonna judge them in Jehoshaphat, and I'm gonna give their. And if they ain't there, doesn't matter. I'll give the orders to my troops, and they'll go out and take care of it. Their judgment will come out in Jehoshaphat, you see, and then America will be wiped out. You see, the ones that aren't brought to Jehoshaphat, the judgment will come out of Jehoshaphat by the Lord of hosts. That's the prophecy, you see. The European Union will be wiped, you see. Egypt will be wiped out. The pyramids will be turned into dust and rubble. Why? Because the pyramids are also the synagogue of Satan. Why? Because the pyramids are is a place where the aliens dwell. It's the chief house of Satan. You see, just like why you think the state of Israel is right there across from Egypt, the synagogue of Satan. You think that's a coincidence? Right? So the Lord believes in collective punishment. You see, He said, "I'm gonna judge all nations," and so that is the prophecy. So, but anyway, I think I'm gonna leave.